Sawadee-kap. Hello and welcome to Daily Wisdom, Walking the Path with the Buddha. Today is our group learning program, and we're studying in chapter 11 of our book titled Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. This chapter 11 is titled Meditation, Developing Your Practice. This is where I teach all the ins and outs of all the various types of meditations that the Buddha taught. He taught 4 types of meditations, and each one of these meditations have a specific purpose of why you're using this particular meditation, and it's all about uprooting certain pollutions or taints or defilements that are in the mind. So what I'm going to be doing is guiding you guys in a meditation session first, and then afterwards I'm going to guide you in understanding these 4 types of meditation and all the ins and outs of meditation so that you can help develop your practice on this path to enlightenment. So welcome to all of you, whether you're joining for the first time or you're joining regularly. And at the same time, I'd like to invite you to join for our meditation. I'm going to start with some chanting to ease us into the meditation. Then I'm going to come in with some guidance. There's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're all meditating together. Then I'm going to come out of the meditation with some more chanting. If you'd like to see these chants, they're on our website at buddhadailywisdom.com. You can click on free books and then just scroll down towards the bottom and you'll see the daily chanting sheet. So you might decide to take a position either seated, lying, or standing. These are the 3 that work out really well for online learning. As I mentioned, I'm going to start with the chanting, which you guys are welcome to join in on, and then I'm going to come back in with the guidance to help you. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhaṃ Bhagavaṇaṃ Abhivādayami Savakhato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti pisu Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakhato Rokavitu Anuttaro Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusanam Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, with your lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, Just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Bhutang Bhagavanang Abhivateyami Savakato Bhagavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti Pisu Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusanang Bhoto Bhagavati. Okay, if you'd like to make your way out of meditation, I'd like to once again welcome all of you to our class today. Welcome to our group learning program. As I mentioned today, I'm going to be teaching you Volume 1, Chapter 11. This is where we're teaching about meditation and developing your practice. Here I teach you the 4 specific meditations that the Buddha taught that you're going to need in order to make your way to enlightenment. There's 2 primary meditations that everyone's going to need in order to make their way to enlightenment. And then there's 2 additional meditations that are kind of specialized, that are only used in specific situations. So I'm going to teach you what all these meditations are and how to use them and why you're using them and all these kinds of things. As you have questions, you're more than welcome to ask those as we go through our class today. You can ask questions by putting that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section, and I'll be able to see that and answer any questions that you have. Or if you're in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand and ask any and all questions that you like. So in order to get to meditation, in order to get to enlightenment, you're going to need meditation in order to train your mind. Enlightenment is where the mind is peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. The mind is permanently in this mental state where there's no longer any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All these feelings and others are completely eliminated from the mind. You'll notice that there's focus and clarity and concentration. You'll notice that you're not even in a bad mood any longer. Your personal and professional relationships will really be blossoming and everything will be at ease. You won't be having struggles and difficulties in your day-to-day life. One of the biggest myths about the life story of the Buddha is that people think that he sat under a tree, he meditated, and instantly got to enlightenment. This isn't actually true. You wouldn't be able to just meditate your way to enlightenment, but you also wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment without meditation either. You're going to need meditation in order to get to enlightenment. But there's plenty of other things that you're going to need to learn and understand and see the truth in and actually cultivate wisdom about in order to make your way to enlightenment. But because meditation is so important and there is a primary practice that you need to develop, we spend time in this group learning program teaching you about meditation. And I've done this throughout the Wednesdays. If you've been attending on Wednesdays or watching the recordings, then you know that I've been teaching breathing mindfulness meditation and loving kindness meditation. I also taught the Buddhist chanting as well. And now we're just rotating each Wednesday between breathing mindfulness meditation and loving kindness meditation. But now's our opportunity to dive into detail and not just talk about breathing mindfulness meditation and loving kindness meditation, which is what I've taught before, but also to dive into the other types of meditation that the Buddha taught as well. There's one meditation to eliminate sexual cravings, and there's another one to help you to realize non-self. So I'm going to walk you through helping you to understand what this practice is and why it's important to integrate this into your day-to-day life, and helping you to be able to build up your wisdom about this practice. And just like everything, it's important that you don't believe what I teach you, but you learn, you reflect, and you practice. That's what's going to help you to be able to get to the wisdom that you need about these meditations. So first, let's just talk about some meditation basics to be able to help establish what it is that I'm talking about when I describe meditation or even use that word meditation. So I'm going to share a definition with you that may or may not match with your current understanding of meditation, but at least when I say the word meditation, you'll know what it is that I'm saying and what I'm speaking about. Meditation is a technique to actively train the mind during dedicated, independent, purposeful training sessions to eliminate unwholesome qualities of the mind and or cultivate wholesome qualities of the mind in the positions of seated, lying, standing, and walking. So it's a dedicated, active, purposeful training session. This is what meditation is, where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities and cultivating certain wholesome qualities. And you're going to be doing that in the seated, lying, standing, and walking positions. These are the 4 positions that the Buddha taught, because this body can't be in the same position to meditate every single time. You're going to need these different positions as part of your tool belt. Just as important as it is to talk about what meditation is, it's helpful to understand what meditation is not, because that's actually helping you to understand what meditation is. Meditation is not exercising, walking the dog, gardening, going for a drive in the car. While these things may be beneficial for you and you may decide to do these things at different times in your life, it's important to not see these as meditation, because what you're going to hear from me today is that I'm going to recommend for students to build up their practice to 2 or 3 meditation sessions for 30 minutes or more. And that might take 6 months, a year, even 2 years to build up to that. But if you hear me recommend 2 or 3 meditation sessions a day, and you just went and walked the dog 2 or 3 times a day, thinking that that's going to actually get you to enlightenment, that's not going to get you to enlightenment. You're going to need this dedicated, active, purposeful training session, because you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities and cultivating certain wholesome qualities. So if you enjoy these kinds of things or others, feel free to do exercise or walk the dog or gardening or any of these other things. But it's important that you don't consider those to be meditation, because nowadays in common language, you might hear someone say, oh, I'm going to go walk the dog and meditate, or I'm going to go do some gardening and meditate. Well, in this situation, you're not actually meditating. You might be doing something that you find to be beneficial, but it's not actual meditation in the way that the Buddha taught. So it's important not to see these things in that way so that you can actually know what actual meditation is, practice it in the way that the Buddha taught, and then you'll experience the actual results of what the Buddha experienced in terms of enlightenment. In terms of meditation basics, it's important to understand you need a meditation teacher. You wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment by yourself without the help of any teachers or any guides. If you tried to do this, you could really run into a lot of difficulties. And I'm going to share a story with you of an individual that I know of that experienced this, but there's plenty of other stories out there as well. But this is just going to help you to understand why it's important to actually have a meditation teacher. There's people nowadays, and many of us, we watch YouTube videos, we read books, and we learn a lot of things in this way, right? If you're learning how to bake a cake or iron some clothes or something like this, you might watch a YouTube video to learn how to do that. Because nowadays we kind of have this self-service way of doing things. But in terms of getting to enlightenment and learning meditation, you wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment by yourself. And if you tried, you could really experience a lot of difficulties and struggles. There's one particular student who reached out to me several years ago who was trying to get to enlightenment on their own without the help of teachers or guides because they didn't know anything different. So for 2 years, they were watching YouTube videos, they were reading books and things like this. And eventually they got to a point where they were really struggling in their life. This individual is actually a practicing physician, they're a doctor, and they ran into some situations where they were actually experiencing major depression and sadness. They were having suicidal thoughts. They were sleeping about 23 hours a day. They were having obsessive thoughts and repetitive thoughts. Their relationship with their fiance was falling apart, and they couldn't even go to work any longer because they were sleeping for 23 hours a day. So in this kind of situation, an individual could work their mind into a situation where they're kind of backed up into the corner because they didn't understand all the teachings that they needed in order to be able to awaken the mind to enlightenment. They just started watching some YouTube videos, reading some books, doing some meditation on their own without the guidance that they needed to be able to help them to get to enlightenment. Well, this individual eventually reached out to me, and I tried to help them as best I could because they were in another country over internet, doing Zoom sessions and attending classes and having them read things and things like this. Eventually, the case was so strong, I suggested that this individual come to Thailand. So I invited this person to Thailand and spend some time here because I needed to be able to help them and face to face. So they did come here for a period of time. And when they did, I was able to help them to a certain degree, but then they ultimately went home. And over the course of the next several years, they did make their way out of the difficulties and struggles that they were experiencing. They got back to work. They weren't sleeping so much. They weren't having suicidal thoughts. They weren't having that deep sadness and things like this. They were able to get back to work. They did lose their relationship with their fiance, but nonetheless, this individual did get back to where things needed to be so they could live a normal functioning life. But during that period of time, that 4 to 6 years that they were really struggling, they experienced a lot of misery, a lot of despair that they could have avoided if they would have just understood that they need a teacher, they need a guide on this path. So I don't suspect that this will ever happen to you because you understand that you need a teacher, you need a guide. Whether you consider that person to be me or somebody else that you would like to work with, find that person that you can reach out to and get help from, because you can't ask questions to a book. And when you're meditating and you're experiencing different things, you're going to have certain questions that you're going to need to ask somebody. And sometimes the answer you're going to get back from your teacher is, that's normal, keep going. And that can be reassuring to you. That can help you build some confidence. So you're going to need a teacher to guide you. And you don't need to contact this person every week or every month or anything like that. I mean, you can go as long as you like in working on your own, but you're going to need certain times where you reach out to this person for help. And you can do that with me if you like, or any other teachers that you choose to work with. I don't need to hear from you every week or every day or every month. You can go 10 years without talking to me if that's what you choose to do. You can pop up at any point and ask me questions, and just know that I'm here to help you, that I don't have any expectation that you will contact me at any type of frequency, but just know that I'm here to help you if that's what you would like to get, is help and guidance along the path. But you're going to need somebody. If it's not me, you're going to need somebody to be able to help you. There's 4 positions to meditate in: seated, lying, standing, and walking. And I'm going to explain to you what each of these are, and I'm going to help you to understand how I use these. But then remember, it's not about believing what I do or replicating what I do necessarily with these positions. Instead, you would like to learn what it is that I'm sharing with you, and you can use it in those situations, but then see for yourself, because there might be certain situations where you could use these positions in other situations. So I'm going to share with you what these are and how to use them, but then don't believe that, and then practice and see for yourself how you could use these positions. So the seated position is typically either sitting on the floor or in a chair or bench or wheelchair, maybe a sofa, something like this. And this is a really go-to position. This is like probably 80% of the meditation I've ever done has been in the seated position because it's really accessible. People are oftentimes learning in this position. You're sitting on the floor, maybe with some cushions under your rear, with your legs lightly crossed, and then placing your hands and arms wherever you're comfortable. With your upper body erect, the sternum up and the shoulders back, this helps to keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. As you're in the seated position, this might be your go-to position, perhaps, depending on your body and what you find to be comfortable. But when you're in the seated position, you might notice that you have a tendency to have pain, aches and pains in different parts of the body, perhaps. And you're not interested in breathing through the pain. If you're experiencing pain anywhere in the body, that's the body saying, hey, there's something wrong here. You need to fix it. So what you could do is you could try to adjust within that particular position, and that could potentially solve that for you. Or if it's not, you can switch to a lying position where you're lying on your back face up and your arms are out to the side. In yoga, they call this resting pose or corpse pose or shavasana, or these are different ways that people refer to it. And in this situation, all your muscles are completely relaxed in the lying position. So you can use seated, if you like, as a primary position, but then you have this lying position that's available to you too if you're noticing back pain, hip pain, knee pain, or anything like this. But then when you're in the lying position, and even in the seated position too, you could notice that you have a tendency to fall asleep. If you're noticing this, that's where the standing position and the walking position comes in. The standing position is where you just stand up and you clasp your wrist in front of you or behind you, or you can put your arms along the sides of your body. And you're doing the same exact thing with the mind, no matter what the body position is, but you're just changing the body position, because if you're falling asleep in seated or lying and you stand, the mind will tend to be more attentive and alert during that time. I've also used the standing position in situations where, like, maybe I'm at a bus stop waiting for a bus and I know it's not going to be coming for a particular period of time, but there's nowhere to sit down and relax. So I might stand up and do a meditation for 10, 15, 20 minutes or so. It might not be one of my 2 or 3 meditations that I consider to be my main meditations, but it's a meditation that I can use to kind of train the mind. Or maybe you're in line, like at a government office, and this line only moves like every 10 minutes or so, or every 5 minutes. And that could be a good time for you to get a little bit of touch-up meditation in. So you can use the standing position that way as well. And then there's the walking position, which once again can be used if you're noticing you have a tendency to fall asleep, but it can also be used if you have an overactive mind or the mind is just restless. And the last thing you're thinking about is sitting down and being still. When you're doing the walking position, it's very intentional walking, where you're very intentionally walking and training the mind. This is a unique style of meditation that I teach in some of the courses and retreats that I share. I'm actually going to be teaching it this Wednesday in our Foundation in the Path to Enlightenment course, which starts tomorrow at 9 a.m. Thai time. So Monday through Friday this week from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., I'm going to be teaching a Foundation in the Path to Enlightenment course. And on Wednesday afternoon, which depending on where you're at, that could be Wednesday morning, I'm going to be teaching walking meditation. And if you would like to learn this, you can learn it by going to our YouTube channel and just typing in walking meditation, and you're going to see multiple videos come up where you can learn walking meditation in the way that I teach it. So this is really good if you have an overactive mind or you're noticing that you're falling asleep, and you can integrate walking meditation into your practice where you can do walking as a standalone. You can do it first and then transition over to a seated, lying, or standing. Or if you sit down in a seated position and you're noticing the mind is just too overactive and you can't really focus and concentrate, you can switch to a walking position. And this will help the mind to relax and really focus in on the meditation. So I'm going to pause here and see what questions you guys have about any of the meditation basics before we go on further and helping you guys to learn more. If you would like to ask a question, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. So it looks like Marcy has a question. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, Teacher David. And I understand that, the positioning is not the same for everybody. Everybody's not going to do it the same. But in the lying position, you had stated about the arms by the side. I have noticed that when I do that, I have an issue with the elbow and the hands will go numb. So I found that just slightly interlocking the fingers and laying them on my stomach is more comfortable, and I'm able to meditate. Am I causing any kind of, by not having them by my side, is that position an acceptable position if I'm able to maintain focusing on the breath?
Yeah, the work that you're doing in meditation is all within the mind. You're not training the body here. So the body needs to be comfortable. You're going to see that here in a moment. I'm going to be teaching that. So if that's what's comfortable for you, then use it. There's no need to have it an exact position. Everything that I talk about in terms of positioning is a suggestion. There's even times where I've laid on my side, like maybe I'm falling asleep at night. I might not consider it one of my 2 or 3 meditations, but I'm lying on my side and I might do some meditation even on the, laying on the side. So you're not training the body, you're training the mind. So as long as the body's comfortable, that's what's important.
Okay. Thank you, Teacher David.
Sure, you're welcome. Okay, I'm going to check YouTube and Facebook here, and I don't see any questions there. So let's talk more about meditation and starting and conducting a session. It's important to understand that the mind is the boss and the body is the employee. The reason why I share this with you is because just like if you went to a business, you have to go through the employee in order to get to the boss. It's the same thing in meditation. You need to go through the body in order to get to the mind. What I mean by that is the body needs to be comfortable, not luxurious and not painful. So anytime the employee is painful, the employees aren't going to take you to go see the boss. Or if the employees are luxurious, they're not going to take you to go see the boss because they're complacent, they're lazy, they're just sitting around. But if the employees are comfortable, then they'll take you to go see the boss. And that's what you would like, is you would like the body to be in a comfortable position, whatever that is for you. So whenever you hear me instructing on body position, these are just suggestions, but you would like to find whatever is comfortable for you. So you got to go through the body in order to get to the mind, meaning you've got to make this body comfortable so that then you can access the mind and actually train it. Whenever you read the words of the Buddha about meditation and he's guiding students in meditation, you can see his own words. In the book series that I share, you can see where he's teaching meditation. He talks about setting up mindfulness in front of you. And now you might know what mindfulness is if you've been studying with me for a little while. What mindfulness is that it's awareness of mind. That's generally what you're thinking about and you're working on when you first get started, is you're developing this awareness of mind, awareness of your thoughts, your ideas, and things like this. But ultimately, you would like to develop the 4 foundations of mindfulness, where you're aware of the bodily sensations, the feelings, the condition of the mind, and the mental objects. So when the Buddha says set up mindfulness in front of you before you start meditating, what he's saying is bring some awareness of mind to the mind before you start meditating. Don't just plop down in meditation, because it's going to be a really long time before you actually start getting benefit. So you'd maybe like to take off your shoes, maybe go to the bathroom. For some people, they might do a little bit of stretching. This is one of the reasons why I do chanting before meditation, because it brings some awareness to the mind so that you can ease down into the meditation and actually get more benefit out of it. So whatever you choose to do is up to you, but bring some awareness to the mind before you start your meditation. This is setting up mindfulness in front of you. In terms of your time, frequency, and schedule of meditation, you would like to build up to 2 or 3 sessions per day for 30 minutes or more, realizing that this is going to take perhaps 6 months, a year, or even 2 years to build up to that. What you're going to notice is your frequency is more important than your duration. So if you have a decision to make, whether it's 1 meditation for 30 minutes or 2 meditations for 15 minutes per day, go for the 2 for 15 minutes. That's going to actually be much more impactful because you're more frequently touching the mind. You're not going to be able to get to enlightenment through just 1 meditation a day. It's not enough. The Buddha himself actually did 3 meditations per day. And if you ever did that, you'll notice significant improvement during that period of time. But if you can at least get to 2 meditations a day, this is what's going to produce enlightenment for you. And you would like to gradually expand those to be longer and longer. So you get to the point where they're 30 minutes. In terms of a schedule for meditation, you're not going to be able to meditate at exactly the same time every day. So if you set up on your schedule that you're going to meditate at 8 a.m. every day, this isn't going to happen. And the reason why we know that is because of impermanence. It's just not possible for you to meditate at exactly the same time. There were times where I was meditating and I thought I was here by myself in the house, and 3-5 minutes into the meditation, my son would walk in and say, "Hey, Dad, I need you to take me to school." I said, "Oh, yeah, really? I thought your mom was going to take you to school." He said, "Yeah, me too, but she's not here. I don't know where she's at. I need you to take me to school." I was like, "All right, well, I'll take you to school." So I took him to school, and then when I came back, I was able to meditate. Right? Whereas if you're attached to meditation and you have this fixed time that you want to meditate every single day, when impermanence starts happening, you're going to be frustrated and agitated and annoyed. So you're not going to be able to create this fixed schedule. But if you have anchor points where maybe morning and evening that you're meditating, and where you can, you get a midday meditation in, this is what you would like to do. This is what the Buddha did. He meditated morning, midday, and evening. The Buddha didn't meditate at any specific time. So if you hear from people that say you have to meditate at 3:30 a.m. every day, and that's the time that you're going to get the most benefit out of your meditation, I can assure you that there's nothing going on at 3:30 a.m. in the morning that's going to make your meditation any better or any worse than if you meditated at 8 or 9 or 10 or 11 a.m. So you can meditate whenever you like. There's no specific time that you need to meditate, but you would like to have these anchor points where sometime in the morning, sometime in the evening that you're meditating. If you normally fall asleep and you get sleepy around 10 p.m., you would like to back that up and meditate, maybe at 9 or 9:15, because you need your mind to be attentive and alert during the meditation. But that doesn't mean you can't meditate at like 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. because you surely can. It's just that if you're going to meditate close to bedtime, be sure to back that up to a point where your mind's attentive and alert during the meditation. So in terms of your time, frequency, and schedule, you like to build up to 2 or 3 sessions per day for 30 minutes or more. And where possible, if you don't need to use an alarm clock, it's best to not use one. Where maybe on the weekends or the evenings, you don't need to use an alarm, just meditate without it. If there are certain situations where you need an alarm, like maybe you're on your way to work and you only have 20 minutes to meditate, then set an alarm if you need to. But where you don't need one, it's best to not use one. The way that you check your time is you look at the time before you start meditating. And maybe it's 9 a.m. And now you start meditating. And then after you're done, you look at the time again. 9:15. So, okay, you've been meditating for 15 minutes. And now next time you just work on expanding it. And you'd like to check in on your meditation about once a week to be able to see how long you've actually been meditating for. So the Buddha didn't meditate at any specific time, and he didn't have a set schedule. But he did meditate for these 3 particular times during the day. If you are using an alarm during your meditation, which, by the way, the Buddha did not have, right? Because timepieces hadn't been invented during his lifetime. You would like to get your practice back to as close as what the Buddha did as possible. So if you know the Buddha didn't have a timepiece, he didn't have a clock, you know that he didn't meditate at 3:30 a.m. every day because he couldn't tell that it was 3:30 a.m. every day because there was no timepieces during that time frame. And he didn't set an alarm when he did meditation because there was no timepieces. Because when you're meditating with an alarm, one of 2 things is going to happen. You're going to be in meditation probably thinking, is it time yet? Is it time yet? Is it time yet? Is it time yet? And this is the mind craving and longing, yearning. That's what you're working to get rid of in your breathing mindfulness meditation. So it's best to not set an alarm. Or you're going to be deep in meditation, getting all kinds of benefit, and then your alarm, if I would have just not set that alarm, you could have got so much more benefit, right? So it's best not to use an alarm if you don't need one. But in certain situations, you're probably going to need one, so go ahead and use it. You might notice some sleepiness during your meditation. And there's kind of 2 options here that you could switch to another position, which is what I've already taught you. You could switch to a standing or walking position, or you could just get some sleep. Because one of the things that you're going to notice when you first start meditating is you might be in a situation where your mind isn't sleeping so well. Maybe you're getting a pretty long period of time of sleeping. Maybe you're sleeping 8, 9, 10, 12 hours a day, but maybe the quality of your sleep isn't so good. And now when you start meditating and your mind's finally starting to perform better and better and better, your mind's getting what it finally has needed all these years. And you might notice that you have a tendency to sleep. Either during meditation or even during your day, you can feel kind of sleepy. And there's kind of like this hump that you need to get over. Kind of like a 3 months, 6 months hump where as you're training your mind's finally getting what it needs and it starts to get this better rest and this better quality sleep. You might notice that you become sleepy either during meditation or during your day. But once you get over the hump, you'll notice that there's more brightness and more radiance and more energy in the mind. So if you're noticing that sleepiness, you could change your body position or you could just get some sleep. Just take a nap. Right? That's what your mind needs. Just give it a nap. And then when you wake up, do some meditation then. You might notice some physical sensations during your meditation. What I mean by this is like itching or scratching, where the mind feels that urge to itch your knee or your thigh or your back or something like that. If you're noticing these things, where possible, just let it be. Keep staying focused on the breath. Because you're going to notice that this itch is going to arise, it's going to change, and it's going to fade away because it's impermanent. It's not permanent. But the mind is going to crave permanent comfort, where it wants this body to be permanently comfortable. And you might notice that you have a tendency to itch. Well, if you keep doing that, you're just giving in to the craving. So you're going to need to allow the mind to experience this body being uncomfortable so that you can get comfortable with this impermanence. You're going to need to get to that point. So if you're in meditation and you're noticing an itch come up, just try to stay focused on the breath if you can. But if 5 seconds in, 8 seconds in, you just have such a strong urge, you need to scratch, go ahead and itch. But then next time, try to elongate that. Try to make it 10 or 12 seconds. And the next time, try to make it 15 or 20 seconds. Try to get to the point where through your meditation training that you're not affected by this impermanence, and that you can notice that this itch is arising, it's changing, and it's fading away. And that you don't need to urge and have craving to be able to actually scratch this itch. You might notice that there's some visual stimulation during your meditation. What I mean by this is like different colors, like white or green or purple, or you might have vivid imagery, certain things that are coming up in your mind, and you're kind of envisioning certain things. Some people have contacted me over the years because they are maybe thinking that these colors mean certain things, but I'm going to help you to understand what these mean, okay? Because sometimes people contact me and they say, David, I saw green in my meditation. Does that mean that I'm going to get rich? Is that what that means? Or, maybe I saw purple. Does that mean my boyfriend or my girlfriend's going to come back to me? What does it mean when I see colors during my meditation? Well, it doesn't mean any of those things. I'll help you to understand what this is so you understand that you're not a special person. There isn't any kind of special thing happening. This happens with a lot of people. Okay, so your sight is happening inside the brain. The eyeball is just a lens that brings in light. So this is why when your eyes are closed, you can actually still see, because sight is happening and occurring inside the brain. So when you're training your mind, which is not your brain is the physical organ in the mind or in the body. That's the physical organ. The mind is non-physical. It's intangible. You can't touch it. You can't point to it because it's not physical. You're training your mind and you're cleaning up the mind. There's a connection to the brain. And as you're training the mind, the physical structures of the brain are changing. We know this because doctors are sharing this with us. They're actually doing MRIs and CAT scans and things like this on people that do long-term meditation, like 15, 20 years of meditation. They can see that the physical structures of the brain are changing in a positive way, in a beneficial way. And when the physical structures of the brain are changing, this is what's producing the white or the green or the purple or different images and things like this. You might actually even hear this occurring. I know I did, because I walked around for a long time before I trained my mind with a lot of pressure in the skull. And I used to have migraine headaches about 2, 3, 4, 5 times a week sometimes. And I even get to the point where I was vomiting. And after training the mind, I no longer have that pressure in the skull. I don't get migraine headaches any longer. I barely even get a headache unless there's like a little air pollution or something like that. So you can experience these kinds of improvements when the physical structures of the brain are changing. And you might even hear it during meditation, that when I was in meditation, I would hear things like, you could actually hear the brain actually physically changing. So these are things that we know that is occurring, and that's what's causing this visual stimulation. So no need to think that you're a special person or that your boyfriend or girlfriend's coming back. Some of you guys that are married, if your boyfriend or girlfriend's coming back, you're probably going to have some significant issues there, right? So that's not necessarily something that you're interested in, right? So this visual stimulation is completely normal, okay? Then there's sometimes people have been taught to meditate with external stimulus. If you've been taught this way to meditate with beads or music or a phone app or a candle or incense or things like this, these things are all impermanent. And if you train in meditation that your mind gets fixed to these things, when you don't have these things, your mind's going to be discontent and you're not going to be able to meditate. So what you would like to do is be able to train your mind to not meditate with any kind of external stimulus. If you've been taught those things and you've been meditating with those things now, it's okay. That's where you're at now. But ultimately, you like to build up where you only need 3 things to meditate: the body, the mind, and the breath. If you can strip down your practice to be able to meditate with just the body, the mind, and the breath, this is very empowering because you're going to have all 3 of these things with you for the rest of this life. Because if your mind is fixated to that special candle and you can't meditate without that special candle, that means when you're walking through a park and it's like, wow, this is a really beautiful park. It's such a nice day. I'd like to sit down and meditate. Ah, I can because I don't have my special candle with me. Right? But if you're learned to meditate with the body, the mind, and the breath, and that's all you need, when you're walking around that park and it's like, wow, this is such a special day. Look at the bright sun. It's so nice out here. The wind's blowing so nice. There's this fountain. I think I'd like to sit down and meditate. You can actually do that because you have everything you need right there with you, the body, the mind, and the breath. Or if you're traveling on vacation or holiday, you're going to have the body, the mind, and the breath with you. Whether you're in an airplane or you're in an airport or something like this, you can meditate no matter where you are. So these are some of the ways to start and conduct your meditation and understand that you're going to need to kind of build up this practice, right? And these external stimulus, you're going to need to kind of strip these away if you've got any of these going on. You would like to do that gradually, right? Where if you're meditating with music, that maybe one day you use music, one day you don't. Or one session you use music and one session you don't. One session you use it, one session you don't. And now you maybe do that for a week or two. And then you do one session with it, 2 or 3 without. One session with it, 2 or 3 without. And do that for like a week or so. And then go one session with it, 3, 4, 5, 6 without it, right? One session with it, 3, 4, 5, 6 without it. And keep elongating this. Whenever you're trying to eliminate anything unwholesome in your life, you can do it gradually like this because your mind's craving permanence and it's wanting things to be a certain way permanently. And when you start making drastic shifts and changes in your life, your mind doesn't like that. So your mind will really appreciate it if you do things more slowly. If you're eliminating something unwholesome from your life, it'll be a more sustainable change if you do it slowly and gradually. Your mind won't even notice what you're doing because you're doing it so subtly and so gradually. And you can even do this with wholesome things. If you're integrating wholesome things into your life practice, like maybe you'd like to switch to a plant-based food supply, you would like to do that gradually, where maybe like one meal you eat meat, one meal you eat plants, one meal you eat meat, one meal you eat plants, and then just slowly elongate it because you're going to need to find new grocery stores, new recipes, new restaurants, things like this. Where if you just tried to cut over cold turkey, it's going to be really challenging for you. So no matter what the unwholesome thing is that you're trying to get rid of or the wholesome thing that you're trying to develop, if you do it slowly and gradually, your mind will appreciate that much, much more. And that includes eliminating external stimulus like beads or candles or music or a phone app or something like that. So let me know what questions you guys have here, and then we're going to get deeper into this, sharing some of the words of the Buddha with you and going through each individual meditation. Remember, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand and ask any questions in Zoom that you like. So Marcy, it looks like you have a question.
Yes, Teacher David. It's about setting up mindfulness in front of you. So I do like to take, before I go into meditation, some reflection, just kind of like reflect upon my day, like particularly like any conversation that I might have struggled with or, a certain choice that I might have had a conflict in the mind about. But I was wondering, would you recommend reflecting prior to meditation, or would you recommend reflecting post meditation?
It would be better post meditation because if you're doing it before meditation, this can bubble up a lot of things in your mind. And now you're having to get rid of those during your meditation, where if you do your meditation, you're going to develop your mindfulness, you're going to become more introspective, more reflective. And those are qualities that you can use after your meditation to now be more reflective and looking inward.
That does make sense because I do notice that there are times like if I've had a very, challenging situation and I reflect on it before meditation, that thought will remain in the mind for a while before I'm able to kind of cut it off and start to focus in on the breath.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Teacher David.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, let me see if we have any other questions here. It looks like we have some maybe from Kristen and Ted. Go ahead, guys.
Hi, thank you, Teacher David. My question is also about setting up mindfulness. Could that also just be about setting up the body, like sitting like you sort of comfortable seat, kind of like setting up the body where like the hips are, in a certain position? And can you just focus on just like the body and just before moving into meditation?
The Buddha talks about the mind and the body separately when he talks about getting prepared for meditation. So he talks about setting up mindfulness in front of you. That is the awareness of the mind. That's what he means by that. But then he talks about setting up the body as well. He talks about, sitting in a hut or by a tree, at the foot of a tree. And he talks about sitting cross-legged and things like this. But the setting up the body for meditation is different than setting up the mind. But you need to pay attention to both of these things. There isn't any one fixed way to set up the body, but you definitely would like to be attentive to the body and make sure it's comfortable, not luxurious and not painful, but comfortable.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what would that mean exactly I'm just like, I'm getting ready to sit for my meditation. I kind of set myself up, get sort of comfortable in my body, and then I begin to breathe. So setting up the mindfulness, I'm not sure exactly what I would need to add.
Sure.
To that
what that is.
Session.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were done.
No, I'm done.
Okay. What it means is like to bring awareness to the mind, right? That you're starting to build this awareness, that you're not just sitting there like, la, 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 just lackadaisical and not necessarily thinking about anything particular. You're starting to like gather this awareness of the mind and really focus in on what are the thoughts and ideas going through your mind. That's what awareness of mind is.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. We've got a question here from Janae on Zoom. She says, how might the duration of meditation be more beneficial than frequency? The duration is not more beneficial than the frequency. The frequency is actually more beneficial because you need to be able to hit the mind more than one time throughout your day. Because let's just say you did meditation only in the morning, right? And now you did your meditation in the morning. All day long, you're experiencing various situations and you're not meditating again until the next day, right? So you went through all these challenges and struggles throughout your day because what you're doing is you're building up your mindfulness or you're building up your concentration, you're building up your loving kindness. And now that's going to wane over the course of your day. It's kind of like you're filling up your gas tank and now you're using that. You got to fill it up again somewhere in the midday or in the evening to be able to help you throughout the rest of your day. So the frequency is more important because you're building up those qualities more frequently throughout the course of your day so that you can use them in your conversations and your meetings and things like this. Another reason why frequency is more important than duration is like, let's just say you were only meditating once a day. And now let's just say you meditate on Monday morning. And now you go through your day and your mindfulness and concentration and your loving kindness is waning. And now you get to Tuesday, and let's just say you forget to meditate. And now it's all the way until Wednesday that you're actually going to meditate again. You went 48 hours without meditating. Whereas if you have 2 meditations per day and you miss your evening meditation, well, okay, now you've gotten to Tuesday morning and now it's time to meditate again. So if you followed the recommendation of 2 meditations per day over the month, that would be 60 meditations, right? Well, if you miss some meditations here or there, if you did 52 or 53 or 54 or 55 or 56 meditations, you're going to make your way to enlightenment because you're consistently meditating over the course of multiple years. Because enlightenment isn't going to be determined based on whether you missed meditation today or not. It's whether you miss meditation today, what do you do next? Can you string together multiple years of meditation? It's not about 1 week or 1 month. It's about multiple years of meditation. So you would like to be able to get to the point where you've built up your practice where it's consistent enough over multiple years. And that frequency is going to be so important to build up those qualities so that you can then use them during your day through your day-to-day interactions and your relationships, because that's where you're cleaning up your karma. When you're interacting with people, you're starting to clean up your karma. But if your mind doesn't have the heightened qualities that you need in order to practice these teachings, you're not going to be able to clean up that karma in your relationships and making wise decisions. So Mayu Lee on Facebook is asking, Teacher, during your 30-minute mindfulness meditation, approximately at around what percentage is the mind with the breath? I understand each time and day will vary. The reason why I'm asking this is to gauge where I am and what to set my goal. I know I have a very long way to go in this lifetime to be where you are. Perhaps I may need to continue in the next lifetime. So the difference between an individual whose mind is untrained and someone who is trained is that in the unenlightened state with an untrained mind, you'll have a bombardment of thoughts, lots of rapid thoughts, or you'll indulge in a thought and you'll follow it for a period of time, and then you'll bring your mind back to the breath. The difference is for someone whose mind is trained, they're going to still have thoughts during meditation, but in between their thoughts, they're going to have quietness and stillness between their thoughts. But they're still going to have a thought. They're going to notice it right away, and they're going to cut it off and let it go and bring the mind back to the breath. So during an average meditation, I might have like 10 to 15 thoughts during that meditation, where in the past I might have had like 50 or 80 thoughts, who knows, right? Or I might have indulged in thought for a period of time. But during a period of time of meditating for 30 minutes, I might have 10 to 15 thoughts. But as soon as it occurs, I cut it off and let it go and bring the mind back to the breath. And then there's this long period of time where the mind is quieted and stilled. It's almost like you're standing on air, or you're standing on like a pin ahead, where it's just so peaceful and so calm and so serene in that stillness and that quietness. So whether you're going to be able to experience that or not, I'm not sure, but that's what I experience. So no need to like compare or measure. I know that's not what you're thinking. You're just trying to gauge where you're at. But your meditation isn't the only thing that's going to determine where you are in your practice, right? Because somebody could be meditating 23 hours a day. They can't physically do this, but let's just say somebody could be meditating 23 hours a day. And then 1 hour a day, they go outside and they're bitter, harsh, and hostile with the people around them. They're not anywhere close to enlightened, right? So it's important not to judge how close you are to enlightenment through your meditation. What you're going to be able to look at is how frequently do you experience discontentedness in your day-to-day life? Are you experiencing discontentedness every day, every week, once a month, once every 2 or 3 months? That's how you're going to know how close you are to enlightenment. When you get to the point where you're experiencing discontentedness like once every 3 months, and it's like very insignificant and it's very infrequent, and you're able to cut it off and let it go really easily, maybe it only lasts for like 15 seconds or 5 seconds, you'll know that you're very close to enlightenment at that point. Even if you get to the point where you're only experiencing discontentedness once a week or once every 2 or 3 weeks, this is actually really nice. This is showing you that your mind's headed in the right direction. So that's more of a determining factor of whether you're close to enlightenment than what's happening in your meditation practice. Look at how frequently you're experiencing discontentedness. That'll be a better indication for you. And when you're getting to a period of time where your mind's peaceful and joyful for an entire month or 2 or 3, you know that you're getting closer and closer to enlightenment that way. All right. I'm not seeing any other questions anywhere. So, all right, I have some things to share with you here. Looks like Marcy has a question. Okay, go ahead, Marcy.
Thank you, Teacher David. I have a quick question. When you're talking about discontentedness, about experience it, like I've noticed that there's been times where I go for long periods of not experiencing any discontentedness, but then, a challenge to the mind will come up, and then the discontentedness will be maybe every other day or a couple times here and there, like little sprinkles of it, and then it'll kind of go away. So it's not like every month, but it's like I get these periods of not experiencing any discontentedness. Life is joyful. I wake up in a pleasant mood. I go to bed in a pleasant mood. But then, like little things will happen, a particular conversation or whatever, or something where I'm, really trying to focus in on, right speech. And then I'll notice like little discontentedness. And it's not like a prolonged discontentedness. It's more like, oh, I'm having some discontentedness and I cut it off and I go on. Is that normal to for it to fluctuate like that?
Yeah, you'll have bouts of it here and there. And that's where you got to stay consistent with your practice, stay confident and determined to continue to go forward, and just keep working with all the Eightfold Path and work on getting rid of it through all the different things that you've learned in the Eightfold Path, whether it's meditation or generosity, cutting off and letting go as it's coming up. So you'll go through long periods of time where you won't experience any discontentedness, but then you'll have maybe a major bout of it, or like you said, like some residual sprinkling of discontentedness here and there. This is normal, but you just stay attentive to the mind, because what you're essentially doing is you're building up your Eightfold Path to a certain point where you're practicing it really well. Then you need to live your life through the Eightfold Path for an extended period of time. We're talking about years of living your life through the Eightfold Path. And it's going to take you multiple months to build it up to that, but then you need to live multiple years through the Eightfold Path. And as you're experiencing impermanence and your cravings are getting triggered, instead of before where you would blame other people, you would be bitter, harsh, and hostile and push people away and put your expectations on people and these kinds of things. Now through the Eightfold Path, you understand like, oh, this is being caused by my own mind. Let me cut that off and let it go. Let me practice some breathing mindfulness meditation, and you're uprooting the cravings that produce that. So you're going to need to live for multiple years on that Eightfold Path, doing things differently than you did before, practicing each one of those factors. So you're going to get triggered at different times. Those cravings are going to get triggered. And that's an opportunity for you to learn and cultivate wisdom, be insightful, be introspective, look inward, figure out what those cravings are, eliminate them. And then you're going to get a longer period of time now of not getting discontent because that particular craving is gone. And now you wait, you continue to practice all the things that you normally do. And then at some point, one of your cravings that you didn't even realize was there is going to get triggered. And then you got to deal with that one. And if you keep dealing with these, eventually the mind will be completely purified. It's kind of like you got to pull back the dust or you got to pull back the carpet and get all the dust out of the house. And you got to get all the dust out of the corners. And you got to make sure this house is completely dust free. So anytime you see any discontentedness arising, just cut it off, let it go, and train the mind in all the different ways that I've taught you, that you've learned throughout the various classes and courses that you've taken.
Teacher David, may I ask one more question?
Sure.
So just to give a little bit of background, so I had began the process of setting up my own business. And it has been brought to my attention that there were some particular steps that I did not take. And what I noticed in the mind was that I was having some, kind of like, I wouldn't say like, oh my God, but more like, oh, dang, like, this is an important step that I missed. But then I started to notice that the mind started to ruminate about this misstep and ruminating about it and then doing all of these like what ifs. So what I did is I said, something, Marcy, this is the mind being a little bit obsessive about this misstep. It's a little bit of impermanence. Let's cut it off. And then I just took the body and the mind and I went and I just meditated some breathing mindfulness meditation. And then I kind of came out, didn't even like reflect upon it, just kind of went out without my day. But every time I noticed that the mind started to ruminate about this misstep, and I could feel like the, oh, dang, kind of come up, I stopped what I was doing. I actually was able to, I have the position where I could just stop what I was doing and just kept administering breathing mindfulness meditation. And so kind of this situation that I'm in right now, that's how I've been kind of remedying it. And then when the mind seems to be calm, then I'll go and I do a little bit of research, a little bit of reading, I start to try to understand the tax laws a little bit better. But as I'm doing that, if I start to see the mind getting that way, I kind of set it aside, let it go, and go back to breathing mindfulness meditation. And I've been doing this now for probably about, I would say it's going to be almost a week now. But the way I'm handling the situation, is this the most beneficial way for me to handle this with the mind?
Yeah, that's fine. You can bring in meditation to be able to cut off and let go of any cravings that are arising. The Buddha talks about that any evil, unwholesome mental states that are arising, that breathing mindfulness meditation will eliminate it on the spot. So if you're noticing your mind craving and longing and yearning in any particular task that you're doing, you can restrain the mind, go into meditation, train your mind to let go, and now resume the thing that you're doing. If you have the flexibility to do that, you can surely do it that way.
Just out of your experience, like in a situation like this, not that I want to put a time limit on it, but when should I be more concerned whether or not I'm not being able to manage it, if that makes a sense? I don't know if I'm asking the question correctly, but it's just a concern of like being able to manage it. Like, how long do I go with this type of practice? I don't know if that's even
how long do you go
answer.
with cutting off and letting go the arising discontentedness?
Well, how long do I go with, I guess this is just going to be something with practice, but like, how long do I know that what I'm doing to remedy this is the correct way of doing it? Like, is there, I guess I'm kind of answering my own question. It's just going to take practice, and eventually the mind will be able to let it go and move on.
Yeah, I can assure you what you're doing is helpful and beneficial. And how long you do it is until all the discontentedness is gone.
Right. I know, that's what I just figured out in my mind. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Teacher David. I appreciate it.
Okay. Take care. All right. So now I'd like to share with you some words of the Buddha on meditation so you can see the 4 types of meditation that he taught. These are his words, where prior to this, he's talking about some other things to his students about what they needed to do in order to prepare for enlightenment and kind of shape up their life practice for enlightenment. He's talking about these 5 different things. But then he gets to these 4 things that he's now describing that need to be developed in order to make your way to enlightenment. So he says, having based himself on these 5 things, meaning the 5 things he talked about previously, the monk should develop further another 4 things. 1, the perception of unattractiveness of the body should be developed to abandon lust. This is a meditation to eliminate sexual cravings. 2, loving kindness should be developed to abandon ill will. 3, meditation, mindfulness of breathing mindfulness meditation should be developed to cut off thoughts. 4, the perception of impermanence should be developed to eradicate the conceit I am. When one perceives impermanence, the perception of non-self is stabilized. One who perceives non-self eradicates the conceit I am, which is nibbana or enlightenment in this very life. So there's these 4 types of meditation that he taught. And you can see here the Buddha teaches very clear, very concise, and very precise. You don't have to interpret his words. You don't have to figure out what he's saying. He's saying loving kindness should be developed to abandon ill will. Very clear, very concise. Right? So now what I've done is I've taken these, and based on other teachings of the Buddha, I've listed them in order based on the way that the Buddha teaches them and the way he prioritizes them within his own practice. Here, he's not listing them in any order of priority. He's just basically listing them out. But here, this is the priority, that you would like to first learn breathing mindfulness meditation, practice that for about 4 to 6 weeks, maybe upwards of 8 weeks. Then bring in your loving kindness meditation and develop that. Then these other 2 are specialized meditations that you would use in certain situations. This is the meditation to eliminate sexual cravings and meditation to realize non-self. So here what I've done is I've not only listed the type of meditation, but I've listed the unwholesome qualities that you're eliminating and the wholesome qualities that you're cultivating, because each one of these meditations are a tool or technique that's targeting a certain pollution that's in the mind. So the core thing that is the Buddha is teaching you to eliminate is this craving, desire, attachment, because that's what's causing the discontentedness. So this breathing mindfulness meditation is training your mind to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. That's the unwholesome quality that you're eliminating. The wholesome quality that you're cultivating is mindfulness or awareness of mind, while training the mind to reside in the present moment with concentration or singleness of mind. So you're cultivating the wholesome qualities of mindfulness or awareness of mind and concentration. The loving kindness meditation, you're eliminating the anger, hatred, and ill will, and all those lesser versions like frustration, irritation, annoyance. By the time you get to enlightenment, you won't even have the slightest dislike towards another being. Right now, there's probably certain beings you like and certain beings that you dislike. But by the time you get to enlightenment, you won't have dislike for any being whatsoever. And you do this through the cultivation of loving kindness for all beings, which is what the loving kindness meditation is doing for you. It's rewiring the mind. Then there's this meditation to eliminate sexual cravings. Like maybe you have 3, 4, 5, 6 boyfriends or girlfriends, or maybe you're having sex with 3, 4, 5, 6 people per week, and you're noticing that your sexual craving is really high, and you like to bring that down so that your craving is not so high. Maybe it's causing a lot of frustration and agitation. Maybe you're having to lie and cause all kinds of unwholesome karma in order to have all these different sexual relationships. So you can eliminate your sexual cravings or even reduce it by doing a meditation to eliminate sexual cravings, which I'm going to teach you about. This is helping you to cultivate what's called the unattractiveness of the body. Then there's a meditation to realize non-self, which is helping you to eliminate this perception of the self, this clinging to the self-image and the self-identity, eliminating personal existence view, which we're going to talk about in more detail when we get to chapter 16 of the group learning program. Then you're going to be able to cultivate the impermanence, being able to eradicate that conceit, I am, where the mind can ultimately realize non-self, where you shed this I am this thing. This will make a lot of sense when you're learning about personal existence view in chapter 16. So here's some more words from the Buddha, and this is about meditation, where he says, a pot without a stand is easy to tip over. A pot without a stand is easy to tip over. The pot here is the mind. The stand is your meditation practice. What he's saying is a mind without a meditation practice is easy to become discontent. So when you're meditating, it's making this stand wider and wider and wider. So it's harder and harder to tip over the pot. Here's some more words from the Buddha. He says, monks, there is one thing that when developed and cultivated leads exclusively to liberation, to freedom from strong feelings, to elimination, to peace, to direct knowledge or experience, to enlightenment, to nibbana. What is that one thing? Mindfulness of breathing, breathing mindfulness meditation. This is that one thing that, when developed and cultivated, leads exclusively to liberation, to freedom from strong feelings, to elimination, to peace, to direct knowledge or experience, to enlightenment, to nibbana. So here he's saying that this meditation of breathing mindfulness meditation, it has one goal in mind. There's one purpose for using this breathing mindfulness meditation. It's to get to enlightenment, to eliminate the discontent feelings, to get freedom from these strong feelings, to get to the peace and the joy that is the enlightened mental state. The Buddha's not saying you only need one thing in order to get to enlightenment. Otherwise, he would have just taught it meditation and that's it. But we have 45 volumes of books, right? It doesn't take 45 volumes of books to teach meditation. So he had lots of other things to teach that an individual needs to learn and understand. You don't need to learn all 45 books, but you need to learn the book series that I share, the 13 books that have been consolidated into that content to be able to help you understand the path to enlightenment. So it's kind of like saying your car, it leads to one thing, which is transportation. Right? Your car leads to one thing, which is transportation. But you need other things in your life besides transportation in order to be able to live your life and sustain your life. So here the Buddha is talking about how this breathing mindfulness meditation leads to enlightenment. That's what you're actually working towards, because it helps you eliminate craving, desire, attachment. And that's what you need to do in order to eliminate the discontent feelings. In terms of conducting your breathing mindfulness meditation session, I think you guys have been in plenty of sessions with me where you've heard me instruct this and guide this, but here I'm actually teaching it where I share with you to focus on the breath, either the sound coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin. And whenever you're noticing that the mind has thoughts, when the thoughts arise, you cut that off and let it go, bringing the mind back to the breath, realizing that your goal isn't to eliminate your thoughts, but it's to train the mind to easily let them go. So in meditation, you're training the mind to cut off anything and everything that comes up because you're training your mind in a particular way. You're training your mind to cut off and let go so that you can easily let go more and more and more, maturing the mind so that it can release. Then in day-to-day life, you're only cutting off the unwholesome things that are coming up. If you're noticing anger or frustration coming up, you'd like to cut that off. If you're noticing you feel like you want to punch your boss in the face, cut that off and let it go. It's going to cause some problems for you if you actually acted upon that, right? So anything unwholesome coming up in day-to-day life, cut that off and let it go. But if a wholesome thought comes up, like maybe you'd like to take your mom to dinner or your wife or your husband, you like to maybe get them a massage or something like that. Who knows what you might be interested in doing? You can do those things. There's no harm with that. You don't need to cut that off. But anything that's going to cause harm, cut that off and let it go. That anger, that frustration, you're going to need to cut that off and let it go. This is very much like a professional athlete. Someone might be like a pole vaulter, and that's the sport that they do. And when they go into the gym, they're doing weight training, cardiovascular training, agility training, and that looks very different than their sport of pole vaulting. And this is the same thing, that in the meditation, you're training your mind to cut off and let go anything that's coming up because you're trying to train your mind to let go, because that's not what it knows how to do. In the unenlightened state, the mind is holding on, wanting things to be permanent. So now in your day-to-day life, whenever unwholesome things are arising, you'll notice that with your mindfulness, you'll be able to cut it off and let it go if you've been training your mind this way. And eventually you'll get to the point where you'll have cut off all those things, where your mind's been purified and you're only experiencing wholesome qualities in your mind. So it's going to need training to be able to get to that point. Your loving kindness meditation is to develop this active goodwill towards all beings, this genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. You can see more of the words of the Buddha here, where he says, develop meditation on loving kindness. For when you develop meditation on loving kindness, any ill will be abandoned. And it's all those lesser versions too. This is the way a Buddha teaches. Very clear, very concise, very precise. You don't have to interpret his words. You don't have to figure out what he's saying. He's saying it very clear. So there's a meditation to be able to essentially rewire the mind so that you can be loving and kind in all these situations. Because maybe in the past, you've been going down this well-worn path of anger and bitterness and hostility, but you know where that leads. It leads to broken relationships. You would like to go down this new path, get out your machete and forge this new path, where now you can create this new path where you're going down this path of loving kindness. And this old path will overgrow and your mind won't go down that path any longer. So this meditation to produce loving kindness in the mind, it's essentially rewiring your mind to be more loving and more kind throughout your day-to-day life. Sometimes when we're in relationships and they're having difficulties and struggles, we really want the other person to change. I did that with my mom for a really long time. I really wanted mom to change. I kept longing, yearning, and craving for her to change. And she never changed, up to that point at least. But then what I actually did is I started training my mind. And I started training my mind to be loving and kind. So then when I was around mom, I started being loving and kind. Where before she would be bitter, harsh, and hostile, I'd be bitter, harsh, and hostile right back. And we were just in this big explosion of fireworks. But now what I started doing is I started being loving and kind to mom. Even when she was being bitter and harsh and hostile to me, I would be loving and kind to her. And now more and more, she could see that she was the one with the anger and her son doesn't have anger anymore. And then ultimately she worked on her anger and she got to the point where she wasn't angry any longer. And by the time she died, we had a very wonderful relationship. That there were many years where we had no bitterness or hostility, where all throughout my childhood and early adulthood, we always had problems. But eventually that all got transformed. And it was loving kindness meditation that allowed me to do that. So when you're training your mind in loving kindness meditation, you're rewiring your mind and meditation, but then you would like to go out into the world and be loving and kind in your day-to-day interactions through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. I'm about to show you guys an image to help you understand meditation to eliminate sexual cravings. And this image is of a dead corpse that's dissected. So if you may be having difficulty seeing something like this, you might not be interested to look at this image. And if you are having difficulties looking at this image, this is a perfect reason why to look at this image, to train your mind to actually eliminate its cravings and not have any discontentedness by looking at these kinds of things. But I am giving you a heads up, so just in case you're not interested in looking at it, that you will know that that's what I'm about to do. Because there's a meditation to realize the ability to eliminate your sexual cravings. As long as you have sexual cravings in your mind where you're longing, yearning for sex, in some situations you're going to be able to get it and you're going to be happy. In other situations you're not going to be able to get it and you'll be frustrated and agitated and annoyed. So if you either would like to reduce your sexual cravings or completely eliminate them, there's a meditation to actually help you with that. And what we do is we look at a dead corpse and be able to see the body as it truly is. Because the reason why you're actually experiencing the craving, the desire for sexual contact is that the mind wants this pleasure. It sees this other being as being attractive, that because of the hair or the clothing or the muscles or the makeup or the jewelry, that an individual looks at this and they're like, oh, wow, that's a beautiful individual and I would like to have sex with it. And I would like to please their body and I would like them to please my body. I would like to give them these pleasant feelings and I would like them to give me pleasant feelings through this contact, through sexual activity. Well, if you saw the body as it truly is, you may not be interested in having sex with it. So what you do is you sit with your eyes open, staring at a picture like this or an image like this, and you develop the unattractiveness of the body. This is what's going to help you to not be able to see the body as attractive. And it's not like you do this one time and all your sexual cravings are going to be gone. You need to gradually wear away this craving, this desire, this seeing the body as being attractive. And you can do that through training of the mind. Then there's a meditation to help you realize non-self, where you're developing the understanding that this body is not you, this mind is not you, that there is no self. Now, what you do here is you do a meditation where you do these affirmations in the mind, just like you do with loving kindness meditation, but instead you're using these affirmations where the mind, with the concept of a self in this personal existence view, it thinks that this body or this mind is you. It thinks that this self-image or self-identity is you. So it clings to it. So what you do in this meditation is you train the mind through saying affirmations like, I am not the body. I am not the body. And you go repeat this multiple times. In each one of these phrases, I am not the mind. There is no self. I do not exist. I am not the body. I'm not the mind. There is no self. I do not exist. So this isn't saying that there isn't a being in existence. What it's saying is that this I that the mind is holding on to, it doesn't exist. This I that the mind keeps clinging to and thinking that this is who you are. So this is something that you do after you've already implemented the things that are in chapter 16. So this is something that you're probably not ready for right now, so I don't go into a lot of detail in it. But as you learn and grow and develop on the path, there's retreats and courses where I actually teach this in detail, and then we actually do it together. So here, this is just an introduction so that you know that it exists and you kind of generally understand what it is, but you'll get into it in more detail as you progress on the path further. So again, these are the 4 meditations that the Buddha taught: breathing mindfulness, loving kindness, the meditation to eliminate sexual cravings, and the meditation to realize non-self. And these are the unwholesome qualities that you're eliminating and the wholesome qualities that you're cultivating. So let me know what questions you guys have here, and then I'll kind of close with something that is the original words of the Buddha to be able to help you see one more thing that he taught. Of course, he taught many things about meditation, but I'll share this one more thing with you. If you have questions, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any and all questions that you like. So it looks like maybe Marcy has another question. Go ahead, ma'am.
Yes, thank you, Teacher David. I know I'm full of questions today. So my question is about loving kindness meditation, and then I have another one about meditation realizing non-self. The loving kindness meditation question that I have is that during a loving kindness meditation, I do a part where I will say, may all beings that this being Marcy has harmed be peaceful. And I'll go through that. But as I go through that, then a name will pop up, or I remember a person that I had harmed. And I even do it for the ones that have harmed me. And they come up, that name comes up. And then I'll say, okay, well, then I add that person to that loving kindness meditation. Is that beneficial to do it that way? Or should I already have a list of the people that I'm going to do it for before I begin it?
You can do it either way, but the more targeted you are in your affirmations, the better it's going to help your mind to release. So if there's some ex-boyfriend named Bob or John or something like this, and that you know through your mindfulness that the mind is holding on to anger, you would like to, instead of saying, may all beings that harmed me or that I harmed or what have you, you would like to actually say, may John be well, right? May John be peaceful, these kinds of things, because it's going to be more targeted and it's going to have more impact to the mind. So if you know those ahead of time, you can do it that way. But if they're popping up during your meditation, then you can just add a ring in for that person.
Okay. And then the realizing non-self, is it on the out breath, just as in love and kindness meditation that you would say this? Breathe in, and then on the out breath, I am not the body.
Yes, that's correct.
And do you keep repeating that same statement, or do you do each individual statement and then go back to the beginning and do each individual statement again? Or is it like you keep repeating it until the mind says, okay, move on to the next one?
You can do it either way. You can repeat the same statement multiple times and then move to the next one, or you can do all of them and then repeat, and all of them and repeat.
Okay. Thank you very much, Teacher David. I appreciate it.
Yep, you're welcome. Okay, so it looks like Kristen or Ted has a question.
Yeah, I have just one question. I sometimes will experience when I'm sitting in meditation where I actually no longer feel my body. And it doesn't become numb, but it's almost like it's just not there, if that makes sense. And that's the question. Is that like something that sometimes could happen?
Yeah, this is an indication that your mind's starting to get ready to realize non-self. This is a helpful time for you. This is an indication that you're starting to see the separation between the body and the mind. People go through this. It sometimes can feel like your body's numb or it doesn't exist, or sometimes it can feel like stone. Some people talk about it that way. This is a time where the mind and the body, you're starting to see that separation between the two. So this is normal. You can keep going. This is actually an indication that you're meditating properly, and this is actually working and being effective for you. It is impermanent. It's not permanent, but it is something that you will experience on your journey to enlightenment.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll add that when we get to chapter 16, of course, you'll probably be in class. And if you're not, be sure to watch the recording, because in there, I'm going to give a whole list of things in addition to meditation that you're going to be interested to learn and implement in your life to be able to help you to realize non-self, because your mind is starting to get prepped and ready for that. So if you start implementing the things that I teach in chapter 16 as proactive training, this will help you to be able to realize non-self. And then at some point you can bring in the meditation to realize non-self.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Mayuli's asking a question on Facebook. She says, when I'm performing tasks throughout the day, I try to cut off thoughts, whether it's wholesome or unwholesome, to bring the mind back to the task. But when I'm not performing tasks, is it okay to let the mind wander off with thoughts as long as it's wholesome? Yeah, you can think about wholesome things. That's no harm there. If you're doing a task and you're having wholesome or unwholesome thoughts, I understand why you're cutting those off so that you can practice singleness of mind. That's, what you would like to do there as well. And then more and more, your mind will just stay focused on the given task. So yeah, if you're not performing a task and you'd like to just sit and kind of let the mind wander and think about all kinds of inspiring things, of course, like you said, they're wholesome. Yeah, there's no harm in that. So you don't need to cut those things off or anything like that. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions anywhere. So I'm going to end with just this one last piece from the Buddha, where he says, meditate, monks, do not be complacent, lest you regret it later. This is my instruction to you. So what he's saying here is don't be lazy, don't be lethargic, or you're going to regret having not meditated. Like when you're angry, when you're frustrated, when you're feeling guilty or shameful or fearful, When you're lonely or bored or stressed or having anxiety, you're going to regret having not meditated. So the Buddha is saying, hey, don't regret this, right? Like, be sure you don't get to that point where you're going to regret it. You won't ever see anywhere where the Buddha is guilt, shaming, or fearing you into learning and practicing his teachings. This is the only thing you'll really see from him, where he's kind of like, okay, come on, like, don't be complacent, don't be lazy, like get out there and do some meditation. One of the ways that I say this is I say, never give up, right? That if you give up on your meditation practice, it's basically like resigning yourself to being angry and frustrated for the rest of your life. That you're just going to feel lonely and bored for the rest of your life. You're just going to feel stress and anxiety. You just give up, right? Well, you might go through periods of time where you're not meditating as much, especially as you're building up your practice, but you would like to be able to never, ever give up, right? There was a time frame where I stopped meditating because I didn't really understand the path very well. I meditated for like for a particular period of time, but then I stopped meditating for over 3 years. And that was one of the worst 3 years that I ever experienced in my entire life. But ultimately, I got back into it, right? I didn't ultimately give up. I thought I had given up, but I hadn't. I got back into it. So don't ever, ever, ever give up on your meditation practice. Otherwise, you're just going to be saying bitter and harsh and resentful for the rest of your life. So you can keep the words of the Buddha in mind that he says, meditate, students. Do not be complacent, lest you regret it later. This is my instruction to you. Okay, so this is some information to help you understand how to build up your meditation practice. And as you guys need help throughout your journey to enlightenment, you're always welcome to reach out to me. I'm very pleased to help you guys with any questions. You can ask questions in classes. You can post in our Facebook group and I'll answer them there. You can send me personal messages through any of the messaging apps or emails, or you can schedule personal guidance, and that way we can talk one-on-one in Zoom. So anytime you need help, feel free to reach out. I'm here to help you guys. Next week, we're going to be in chapter 12, which is titled, Craving is the Problem. What is the Solution? You can read this. It's a fairly short chapter. It's really kind of a reminder chapter to help remind you about the Four Noble Truths, because in chapter 13, I'm going to be teaching you a new skill, a new ability. Because up to this point, you've been learning about the Eightfold Path and all the things that you need to be able to get to enlightenment. But there's this skill that you're going to need to develop of how to identify your cravings and how to almost surgically go in and remove them and eliminate them. Because everything I've been teaching you up to this point is kind of more like a general training of the mind to be able to eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments. But now in chapter 12 and 13, I'm going to teach you how to go in and almost surgically remove these cravings out of the mind. So that's what we're going to be doing over the next 2 weeks. So thank you all for joining for today's class. If you'd like to join for any of these other classes, you're more than welcome to. And whatever you choose to do today, have a very wonderful and lovely rest of your day. Perhaps we'll see you guys in a future class. Be well and take care. Sawadee khap. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.